Hey, I'm Lisa.
Hi.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Chris.
And the shenanigans begin.
It's so on brand.
I know, right?
Welcome to Vlogmas Day 1.
Yes, we're doing Vlogmas for the first time this year because we're podcasters now.
I feel like we can do it. I feel like we will get through all 24
We'll
days.
see.
There'll just be a few turtles along the way. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
there'll just be a couple of turtles that just creep by very slowly. So, what are we going to talk
Um, I don't know.
about? I know.
No, this
I
is
was.
gonna be just like an introduction to like us. So I guess if people are like discovering us for the first time, this is just like a hey, how you doing?
Well, you want me to start?
Okay.
All right. So, I thought I would tell my fiber story. And I don't want to start with Once Upon a Time, but I feel like it's appropriate. Once upon a time. Actually, I learned to crochet and do many other craft sort of activities from my grandma and my mom. Crochet has been in our family for I don't know how long, and I learned to crochet like everybody else did. My grandma had me making chains. I remember rebelling against the chains because, you know, if your chains start out wonky, your entire crochet would be wonky. So she believed you should make chains until you can make chains in your sleep.
Did you get to start with a hook? Because when my grandmother showed me how to do chains, she had started me with my fingers. I didn't get to touch a hook at first.
No,
Okay.
no hook. I had to graduate to the hook.
But it makes sense now because
Yeah,
you really had to understand what you were doing with one loop passing through the neck. So
yeah,
it was a good idea, but yeah, I didn't get to touch a hook at first.
yeah. Me neither. Me neither. So I crocheted for most of my life. And you know how it goes. You pick it up, you put it down, but it's kind of always there waiting for you. And I always encourage people to, anytime their kid evinces any interest in a fiber art, have it ready to go, let them do it. Because when they're ready to come back to it, they always come back to it. So I was always curious. Remember those books we
Okay.
had? Remember those books we had? I forget what the series was called. There was a
Yeah, they
whole
were
series of books.
hardcover. They were really skinny, but they were hardcover books,
Mhm.
and they covered a lot of different crafts.
Yes, but in that real 70s way. So here's 3 pages on how to spin, go spin. But it covered all sorts of crafts. And one of the crafts it covers that I was always very curious about was knitting. But I didn't know anybody who knit, and I never was able to learn. So around 2010, I was like, you know what? I'm still curious about knitting. I want to learn. And I got myself a couple of books, Teach Yourself to Knit Visually and Knitting for Dummies. Because, in the 2010s, you could learn anything for Dummies book or the Idiot's Guide. I used to love those too. Um, I did learn to knit basically, but I misunderstood a couple of little things, and I ended up knitting every single stitch slightly backwards, so all of my stitches were twisted. Knit like that for 2 years and taught 2 other people how to knit. One left-handed because I didn't think it was an issue. It was like, yes, yes. So I taught 2 of my girlfriends at work how to knit. And it wasn't until I took a class at I think might have been the first Vogue knitting, that the teacher pulled me aside. She goes, you got some twisted stitches there. And I was like, really? Which one? And she goes, all of them. But I had just kind of discovered the whole knitting community, sort of. And I was sort of working my way in from the edges. So knitting podcasts like exploded around that time. Knitting magazine was a thing. Ravelry had just started. It was like an invitation only thing. At that point, it just, now it's like such a fundamental part of the knitting world. And I was just sort of taking things step by step at that point, you know, picking projects that were too hard, but I didn't know. So I went for it. I bought that Estonian lace book thinking I could make Estonian lace. I didn't make any Estonian lace. But that's really how I got into knitting. And
And that's
that's,
how the store got its name.
yes, because I was a knit sheep of the family. I was the only knitter at that point.
And we judged.
Yes, they did judge. They surely did. And there's still a tiny bit of competition about my niece. We have one niece, and Crystal and I are waiting to see what side she's going to fall on.
Because our other sister took up knitting now. So now it's 2 and 2
Mm-hmm.
knitters, crocheters, and our niece is going to be the tiebreaker.
Yes, she is. And anytime she evinces any interest at all in knitting, I'm like, okay, here we go. Because I'm kind of incepting her.
I honestly don't think she'll take up either.
I don't think so either. She's a different kind of artist.
She don't have the patience for it.
Yeah, she's a different kind of artist. She's a visual artist. Okay, tell your story.
My story is terribly unexciting.
I didn't think mine was exciting at all, so I don't feel bad.
The twisted stitches, we went on a journey there. Yeah. I learned to crochet from our grandmother, and the first thing I ever made, actually, she showed me how to do the single crochet stitch and a double crochet stitch. But my grandmother crocheted so fast that I did my double crochets wrong. I was making half doubles. I didn't know that's what they were called at the time, but I was making half doubles because I couldn't see that she was pulling through twice because she went so fast. I noticed my stitches didn't look like hers, and it took me a while to realize that there was like a little flick of her hand happening. And I was like, oh, she's doing that twice. So it took me a little while to get my stitches straight. But when I finally did, I made 8 granny squares that my grandmother turned into a pillow that matched a blanket she had made. So we still have that blanket, and it was in our old store. It was just a big granny square, all different colors, granny square blanket. And I made a pillow that matched it. And Lord only knows what happened to the pillow. It did not have the longevity of my grandmother's blanket. But that was the first thing I ever made. And from there, I just made scarf after scarf after scarf. And you know what? I feel like when I was little, I didn't really realize you could make things that weren't rectangles using crochet. It just, I didn't really see a lot of crochet outside of what my grandmother was doing. She did make doilies, and she actually used to make hats for the usher board in the church. So they were basically like doilies, but then she would fold them into a shape and starch them, and the ushers in the church would wear them. That was like my entire experience with crochet at that point. And I made scarf after scarf. And then eventually, I think like around college, I fell out of the habit of crocheting, and Lisa started knitting. And I was like, Lisa's making stuff. I used to make stuff. I don't want to make stuff.
I want to make stuff.
And I picked up crochet again. And at that point, it was the first time I'd ever come into contact with something like a pattern. I had actually my mom had a stitch dictionary, and I started using that to make my scarves. I would just pick a stitch pattern that I liked and just keep going until I had something scarf length. And I didn't realize that at the time that was teaching me how to read patterns. And eventually I wanted to make clothes, because then I finally became aware that you could actually make like whole garments using crochet. And because I had that experience with the stitch dictionary, I was very comfortable. The first book I used was The Crochet Closet by Lisa Gentry. I recommend it highly as a beginner book because the patterns are written very, very clearly, and there's schematics for everything. It is a great beginner book, and that's where I started. And I made a jacket from that book, and it didn't fit at all. Not even close. Something up in the shoulders and the underarm, and it was so weird and so uncomfortable when I tried to put it on. But when I wasn't wearing it, it looked like a jacket. It looked like a real jacket. And I was like, so even though it didn't fit, I still put the buttons on. I made the belt loops. I did the whole 9, because I was like, but I made a thing that looks like a jacket. And that, even though it didn't fit, it kept me encouraged to try again, because I was like,
honestly, you know what? I remember that jacket, but I didn't know any. It looked so perfect. I didn't know anything was
As
wrong
long
with
as I
it.
didn't put it on, it was fabulous.
It looked perfect.
It was, and I made it out of like the big old pound of love, and it was this hideous berry color. I mean, everything about it was wrong. I ain't know nothing about nobody's swatch. No, I just went for it. But it left me feeling like, oh, I can make things. Now the trick is just to get them to fit.
Yes, yes.
And so I was like completely prepared to do that. And eventually, the two books that I used as a beginner was they were The Crochet Closet by Lisa Gentry and Urban Edge by Shannon Mullet Bowlesby. Another great, great, great beginner book. Shannon Mullet Bowlesby writes terrific patterns. Um, and I started being able to make garments and completely fell in love with being able to wear something that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the payoff for me. No matter how frustrated I get, no matter how many times I think, oh, I'm not even going to be bothered finishing this item, it's the desire to wear it that keeps me going.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm kind of strung out. I'm a little bit of a junkie when it comes to like wanting to make my own clothes. I'm even thinking about sewing.
Ooh, that's news. Oh, snap. Breaking news.
Because sometimes you want to make something a little bit faster. And some, sewing projects will take longer, but some will be quite quick. I think I can make a t-shirt fairly quickly.
Sewing is infinitely faster than knitting or crocheting.
So, now I just make garments. And then I finally took it upon myself to try to design my own garments. And because I felt like as I was making things from patterns, I was picking up knowledge, from everything that I made.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it was just like, but am I really? And I wanted to test that.
Yes.
And I made a sweater that I called it the off-road sweater because it was the first thing I'd made without a map, essentially without a pattern. And it's got a little bit of wonk, and I made some mistakes, so it's longer than I intended, and the sleeves are shorter than I intended. I ended up having to buy extra yarn. So it's like a really expensive sweater too, because I made it out of hand dye. Heaven help me. But it's cute. It's a beautiful shade of red, and it's wearable. And again, even though things didn't turn out perfectly, it just kept me encouraged. So now I'm just as likely to design something for myself as I am to make something from a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just on like a journey to add handmade to my wardrobe.
Yeah, I think I'm joining you on that road because I really am thinking about the quality of things we buy. And if I'm going to put the time and the money, because yarn is not cheap,
you can buy clothes cheaper than you can make them.
You really can. But I think I would have a longer relationship with the clothes that I make than I will have with the fast fashion that we buy. And I think they will hold up longer. I think they will look good longer, and you get that pride of wearing something you have actually made. So I'm kind of joining you on that journey.
And one thing that I was just thinking about the other day is that making things for yourself gets you out of the trend cycle.
It does.
Where you can only get what's considered popular. Let me tell you about these skinny jeans and how I could not find a pair of cargo pants to save my life when skinny jeans were all the rage, because they just weren't selling another silhouette. In fact, I saw skinny cargos and I was like, That's horrible.
How about remember the low-rise jeans?
Oh,
that was a terrible era.
Yeah. So, I keep thinking about that scene in The Devil Wears Prada,
mm-hmm.
where Andy says something like, "Oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a belt." And Miranda Priestley gives her this whole dressing down and explains to her that basically the sweater Andy was wearing, she thought she was so above the fray when it came to fashion, but the sweater she was wearing was essentially something Miranda had chosen for her 3 years ago, because she'd chosen that color. She saw it on runways and she made that color happen. And that's why, when Andy went to the Gap or whatever and bought her sweater, that's why her sweater was that color. And that is really how it works. Like, there's a handful of people somewhere who the Fashion Shadow Council who decide what people are going to wear for the next several years.
Yes.
And if you want anything different, if you want a different kind of silhouette, if you want a different kind of material, you're going to have to make your own.
Yeah, or you'll have to wait till it comes back. Yes, if you like me, I like a medium rise boot cut jean.
Yeah, you couldn't
and
get boot cuts either when
couldn't get
skinny jeans were the thing.
boot cuts. Or try finding a pair of navy blue slacks when navy blue is not a thing.
So I think I'm going to have more control over my style
Mm-hmm.
by making more of my own clothes.
Oh,
And so that's
absolutely.
what I'm planning to do for the next few years with crochet and maybe with sewing. We'll see. It's
So,
like an idea right now. I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
you know what? Just like with your crochet, start with something simple.
And it's like I have this massive crochet queue, and I'm terrified that I'm then gonna have like a massive sewing
Oh,
queue in
you will.
addition.
You will.
And I'm like, so I'm gonna have like this pile of yarn over here, and then a pile of fabric over here, and like you won't be able to open the door to my room anymore because there's just be a fabric and yarn pushing back against the door. So I'm gonna try like to be better about acquiring fabric than I have been about acquiring yarn because I love the yarn. So I keep buying it, and like I just bought a few different yarns, and I'm just gonna like stop here. Like try. I set a rule. I don't know if I mentioned it on camera that I'm going to not buy new yarn until I finish a certain number of projects. So I'm not going to set a time frame in which I won't buy yarn because that's fantasy.
Mm.
But I'm going to try to like finish say 3 projects before I let myself buy any more yarn.
Okay,
But
that's
I think
reasonable.
with sewing, I'm going to try to make that one project and really just focus, especially because I'm going to have to start at the beginning with sewing and learn everything.
Yeah.
Just to be able to focus on the thing that's right in front of me.
Oh, P.S. Mom's gonna have you make an apron.
I'm not going to
Make the apron.
I'm not gonna make
it teaches
apron.
you things. Make the
I'm
apron.
not gonna make the apron. I'm gonna start with something simple, but it's not gonna be an apron.
I made the chains. Trust me, you want to make those chains.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's it. We're just I'm at a place where I want to make for a specific purpose, and that's really about adding to my wardrobe. And I'm an incredibly selfish crocheter, and I only crochet for myself, and I don't feel at all guilty about it.
Oh. Isn't that something?
Because one, I have a lot that I want to get through because part of like the queue, I have all these things that I still want to learn how to do.
Right.
And so I need to focus on that. And 2, we have a massive family. It's really big. My mom is one of 6 children. So with all the aunts and uncles and cousins, if I make something for one person, it's going to be like, oh, well, you made something for so and so.
It will escalate.
I'll never get back to crocheting for myself. Never. So yeah, once other people get into the queue, that's it. It's all over.
So don't be afraid to be a selfish needle crocheter. You deserve it.
Maybe if you're an only child, I don't know.
You definitely deserve it. But I think that's one of the conversations we want to have as we interact with our podcast community. What are you making and the why of your making? And how does your why inform what it is you're creating?
Because I tend to make the same kinds of things that I buy.
Yes.
So, which was interesting for me. I didn't realize that even before I'd really thought about it, I was really connecting my crocheting to my wardrobe and like, how do I want to wear this thing?
I always say that I make garments, not projects. Yep. Well, sometimes I do make a project because I have been known to take on a project just to learn a skill. So, and honestly, sometimes I don't even finish the thing once I learn the skill, and because I'm there for the skill, and I didn't realize I was doing that.
We were just talking about that, and I was saying that because, like, right now I bought this book of 50 crochet cable patterns, and so right now I'm just making a swatch with some of the different patterns on it, and I was saying that I want to separate practicing a skill from making a project. And so now when I learn a skill, I really want to just focus on making a swatch first. Like I want to do some more color work.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to do color work swatches and learn the technique and then apply those techniques to patterns.
Yes.
Or to my garments.
Yeah.
Because you really, I think that really helped me when I was working with the Stitch Dictionary.
Mhm.
I was just learning how to read the instructions
Right.
for making a certain stitch pattern, but I didn't have to do any shaping. I didn't have to do any seaming. I didn't have to do any construction because I was just making a flat rectangle. I was making a
Exactly.
scarf.
And even
And
the
so,
rectangle itself wasn't that big.
right.
So you didn't have to manage a million stitches.
So I wasn't distracted at all, and I by the time I read my first pattern, I didn't have any questions. And I didn't even realize that at the time, but I was completely able to read that pattern because I'd read so many different stitch patterns.
Right.
And I understood what the parentheses meant. I understood what the asterisk meant.
Yes.
So it helped a lot. So I think I have to spend specific time on skills and then other time on projects.
Yeah, and it took me years to figure that out because
That?
I didn't know what I didn't even know. I would take on a project that was just beyond anything I could possibly actually do. Or it would have
like Estonian lace,
or it would have 5 new skills in it because I fell in love with that picture. And I wouldn't even read the pattern all the way through. So sometimes it'd be a surprise.
Let me tell
like,
you, these
really?
photos you see and you fall in love with them. And you know, after now you can look at a picture and understand what some of the skills are that will be involved in making. But when you don't know those things, oh, it can break your heart.
Yeah. I mean, you'll come up to, and then sometimes in the pattern, it will not say, oh, you need to do, I don't know, a Latvian braid. And, they'll just kind of describe the actions of a Latvian braid. So if they didn't describe it pretty well, you can't even look up what it is you don't know because they didn't tell you the name of the technique. So when you have a pattern that has 5 different skills, you're making noops and you're making Latvian braids and you got to pick up stitches, and your stitches are twisted, by the way, because you still don't know that your stitches are twisted. You have absolutely no hope of completing. And you don't even know you have no hope. You're just mad, frustrated.
But I've learned so much along the way.
Yes.
That now learning for me is one of the goals. It's like now I just want to hoover up all the knowledge that I can and then apply that to being able. The goal for me is to be able to make anything I want. Is to be able to picture something in my head and say, okay, I know I would have to do this, and I can shape it like that, and that's where I want to get. And I'm
so you want to get where Grandma was, pretty much. She'd look at the pictures, and now I understand why European knitting and crochet magazines, they don't allow you to go through the whole book. They come sealed up. Even if you buy it at a magazine stand, wherever, it's sealed up in plastic because some of the people learn knitting and crochet in school. So everybody has, well, not everybody, but many people have more than just basic skills that they're learning on their own. And one of the things my grandma could do was analyze a pattern that she saw and recreate it because she had the skills to read the stitches and recreate what she's seeing. And I think that's the direction you're headed in.
I hope. that is my sincere desire, but it's baby steps right now.
I would eventually like to create some of my own things, but for right now, patterns are such a shortcut. When a well done pattern, it cuts out a lot of experimentation that you have to do, and sometimes I just want to get going.
And that was why I had to take a break from patterns by and large, because I needed to learn shaping. And I was never going to learn the math involved. I was never going to learn the skills required to shape things, because if I had a pattern that said do 10 stitches this row and 8 stitches the next row, I didn't even have to think about it. So yeah, after a while, you need to wean yourself off of patterns so that you can start developing these skills for yourself. Because I really used to think that there are just people who have the knowledge. And then there's everyone else. And the people with the knowledge, they design things and write the patterns, and then they share some of the knowledge with the rest of us. And now I'm starting to understand, even sometimes when designers talked about a little bit about their process, I didn't understand until I tried it, how much trial and error, how I thought every time I had to rip something out, it meant I didn't know what I was doing and I couldn't do that thing. And I didn't realize, no, that's just how you do new things. You do it over and over, and you make your mistakes and you figure that out, and then you get it sort of kind of right, and you fudge some things and you keep going. I didn't realize that that's just the process, that making is messy a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's okay. And now that I know that, it's better. It's so much better.
So we wanted to share this with you guys today. So you just kind of get an idea of what direction we're coming from as we grow our podcast. So if you really are interested in kind of the nitty gritty, how did I get to the end of this project process? Because I think that's another thing that beginners don't understand. They see this thing and they think this happened in one shot. They did not see when you
All the
realize
bumps in the road.
when you realize, oh wait a minute, there was supposed to be 2 yarn overs, or you realize that you misread, the increase sequence. So now instead of having a triangular shawl, you have something very irregular.
I'm a trapezoid.
We're a trapezoid, yeah,
A rhombus even.
even. But I think the process is just as interesting as the finished object. And I think that once you get into the process, I think it's easier for a new person to come in and say, because I've had people say they don't want to come to Sit and Stitch because they're beginners.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, it's not like that at all. You just come, bring what you're working on. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be any particular thing, and hang out a bit.
And I feel like for me, if I make my mistakes in public, I'll be less scared of making mistakes.
Yes.
So I'll just say, yeah, oh, girl, I messed that up. Like, I'm going to tell you, I just did Vest 2.0, and then we got this. And this is the same yarn that I made my vest out of.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked it side to side. And I'm like, I should have worked my vest side to side to get the vertical stripes, and the edging would have been easier. And now I'm really thinking about remaking the vest.
You're going to turn, think I rip the vest out again?
I don't know if I'm going to rip it out or just get another ball
and just make another one.
But I had a pattern that I was taking the shape of the vest from.
Mm-hmm.
And I still stayed pretty faithful to the pattern, even though I changed the stitch pattern and I added some details and made it a little bit mine. I realized I could have deviated a little bit more from the pattern, mm-hmm. in a way that would have made it something that is more like what I like to make.
Right.
And this is why crocheters should be included in trunk shows, but we won't even get into that. But now I have another idea about how to work with this particular yarn.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to jump on that. I might have to just hop on Universal's website and pick up another ball and remake my vest. But I'm kind of excited about that. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now that you have a more of a definition of what you want to do, now it's finding the time to work through it. I made a swatch that I've been threatening to make for 2 weeks now, just like yesterday, and I put it home to dry last night so I could measure it today. But it's finding the time is where things get a little sticky sometimes.
But that's us as makers.
Yeah.
And we're still figuring out a whole lot. And so we just want to kind of like extend an invitation to everyone to just, come along with us on the journey, and hopefully something that we say or even the mistakes that we make will be useful to others, because that's what we want. We're so excited about making and learning that we want to share that enthusiasm with other people, and have you all making and learning along with us.
Oh, and I got to tell you, you're going to notice that Crystal's glasses change all the time. I'm a little bit jealous because let me tell you why. I wear these so that I can see things clearly. And she wears those because they're cute. Where'd you get this pair from?
I get them all the same place, actually.
Really?
Yes, Cosmic Eyewear. And we're not sponsored or anything. I'm just letting y'all know this is where I get my glasses, because they have an amazing selection and they're not expensive.
Do they have glasses for seeing too?
No, they have readers.
Oh,
that's it.
They don't sell glasses for seeing?
No, they only sell. They have these, and they have sunglasses.
Stop the madness.
Yeah, no, they're just cute accessories. And like, I can't wear earrings because of an allergy, and I can't wear nail polish because of an allergy. So I needed an accessory. And so this is what I went with,
Okay.
and I'm incredibly happy.
And I am so jealous because I need these to actually see. So don't be alarmed when you notice that it's a totally different pair of glasses because no one knows how many she has. She won't tell the story.
No one needs to know.
Okay, no one knows the number. So keep count, okay?
No.
Oh yeah. But
So yeah,
what do you think? Do you think we done for today?
yeah, so that's Vlogmas Day 1. It was longer than I thought it would be.
Me too. But you know what?
Hopefully you all will enjoy it.
Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I hope you'll come on the journey with us. We are actually closing our store, the physical store, but we will continue through our website.
A lot more of us online.
Yes. And
we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're moving into other things. So come join us on the journey.
Bye.
Happy holidays.